Hi, and welcome to this episode of Consciousness and Me. My name is Josephine, and I thought we'd take another deep dive into this apparent split between science and religion. And I'd like to do so by inviting a comedian who I find just use his comedy to really like punch a hole through this apparent division that we think we have. And yeah, his name is Pete Holmes. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but I find him partly very funny and entertaining, but also that um, does this thing that comedian can do so well, where they frame the problem and then they just flip it around, so it becomes so obvious that you can see it from a different perspective or things. Anyway, one of the jokes he has that I just absolutely love is oh, I think I'm gonna have to tell you to you now. So I'm really sorry, Pete, if I'm completely wrecking your joke now. But he says that some people believe that nothing created the universe, and they make fun of the people who believe that God created the universe because they say that God doesn't exist. And then he makes this punchline of something that definitely does not exist and that science cannot prove. It's nothing. That's the defining characteristics of nothing. It doesn't exist. And then he adds that if your nothing spontaneously erupts into everything, well, that's a pretty magical piece of nothing you've got there. And then he also adds that the nothing people, they believe that when you die, you go into nothing. And he says, well, that's merging with your creator. And that's what we call heaven in other terms. And I just find it so profound somehow. Even in a podcast recently, he even expressed it himself that what he's trying to point to is that we're all talking about the same thing. We might have different explanations. We might have different views of looking at it, and we use different words. There might even be some differences in how we interpret it. But what we're pointing at is this magical, mysterious, maybe not magical, possibly, but mysterious thing that we don't know where we came from. We don't know what this existence is about. None of us do. Science cannot tell, cannot answer why we're here, how this all came about. And religion is just one way to make sense of it. Science has a different approach, but they're not in conflict with each other. They don't have to be. We could all work together. We could be on this exploration journey together. But let's talk about it. Let's be curious about how people see it. And this is not, it sounds like through the joke that it's a criticism for atheists or people who believe that there's nothing. From my perspective, it's not. And it's not a criticism towards religion. I think it's an advocation to drop our agenda that we know the truth in our mind. I'm not saying we can't embody the truth or we can live the truth, but in our way of phrasing it, we don't have the truth. None of the camps does. And if you think that we're somehow, or rather, if you view it as though we are against each other, as though we have to convince each other, well, that kind of takes the fun out of exploring why we're here. There's so many different layers to approach this. You can approach it through arts. You can dance it, you can sing it, you can paint it. Or you can explain it through religion, which from my perspective, even was more of a pointer towards something. More of an intuition that's been phrased into words. Or you can go the science way, which for me is more the mind way, the rational approach. We put it in an Excel sheet, we square it up, we see where the pointers lead. And they all have a place in this world. They all have a place in us unraveling the mystery of being alive. When we buckle down and kind of take one approach and adds it to a domain where it doesn't really fit, Like, let's say you make art, a concert, too scientific. If you look at the vibration of the sound waves, if you look at the amplitude of the sound waves, if you look at the wave light, the wave of light that is coming from the light, the setting of the light, you're missing the whole experience. It's not untrue, but it's not the same thing as experiencing a concert. It's not the same thing as being there without analyzing. And if you try to dance your way to understanding how radiation from the sun works, you're not going to get the same measurements. You cannot build solar panels that way. So, yes, let's put down our arms. Let's put down the weapons. Becomes so much more fun if we invite curiosity. If you see that from my perspective, what you're saying makes absolutely no sense. But please invite me into your perspective. What do you see from there that makes you draw that conclusion? Because to be honest, my perspective of the universe, everything I learned up until now over 4 decades, it's quite a very, very limited view on the universe. It's such a tiny perspective, and to think that I somehow have figured it out, well, I think that's gravely mistaking myself. And also, even if we were to add up all of humanity, if we could take all of our experiences, all of our thoughts, everything we learned, look through the eyes of all of us, it would still be a very, very limited portion of the vastness that the universe is. And if we add in things we cannot, the unmanifested universe, it's an endless well to be explored. And also, we don't need to agree with someone else. We don't need to say that their perspective is accurate, but it is true that it is their perspective. Mhm. The thing that science and arts fits together, though, is through comedy, because it gives us a more free way to express ourselves. And I think Pete Holmes does that magnificently. So yes, I think that's all I wanted to say in this episode. If you have any thoughts about this, please comment below, share your own insights, your own stories. Thank you.